We've talked about Norman Rockwell many times on this channel, and if you've ever wondered what it would look like if Norman Rockwell made a comic book, look no further than this book right here. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Thomas Pitilli. I'm a comic book artist and an illustrator, and in this video we're going to be talking about Superman Peace on Earth. It's written by Paul Dini and beautifully painted by Alex Ross. Somehow or another, I never really made a video on this channel exclusively on Alex Ross. At least I don't think so. And of all the Alex Ross works out there, this might be my favorite Alex Ross work. I remember when this came out, I had to check the back here. It's 99. I remember though that I'm pretty sure it came out the Wednesday before Thanksgiving of 99. And this was like a real special comic that came out that year. It's obviously very oversized, and it's much more like a art book or a storybook than it is a traditional comic book. This was the first of a series of books that Alex Ross and Paul Dini would put out. I think it turned into 5 years in a row. This was the first one, Superman. The following year was Batman. I think it was Wonder Woman, and then perhaps Shazam was the last one to come out. And it was every year around Thanksgiving, Christmas time, one of these books would come out. Alex Ross is such a skillful and talented painter, artist, and the fact that he works in comics primarily is a real treat for all of us who love both comics and traditional illustration and painting and all that stuff. He really merges those two worlds together in a very unique way. It's rare that you have someone who is as passionate about, I guess, the non-comics art world and also simultaneously super passionate about comic books and is skillful enough to bring the techniques and influences of all the artists that he admires outside of comics and bring that into his love for comics and visual storytelling, sequential storytelling. I thought that this was a particularly great place to start with Alex Ross, given the time of year that we're in. It takes place during Christmas. It has a real kind of like warm, cozy vibe to it. But like I said, it's also my favorite Alex Ross work. I think it really highlights so many of the things that he does well in comics. I wanted to make this video for the comic fans out there. I also wanted to make this video for the lovers of art, whether you're into comic book art or illustration. I think regardless of the fact that this is Superman or quote unquote a comic book, I think there's something in this work that everyone could really appreciate and admire. I love the oversized format as well. I'm a big fan of European comics and their graphic album approach. And to me, this feels very much in line with that stuff. And really for me, what I feel was one of his biggest contributions with this book was his depiction of Superman. He's a hero, he's heroic, he's someone to be admired. And all of that is very much communicated in the way Alex Ross paints and depicts Superman in this book. So speaking of admiring, I'm going to stop talking and open up this book and we can start admiring this beautiful art that Alex Ross painted in this Superman Peace on Earth book. Superman Peace on Earth. This is written by Paul Dini and beautifully painted by Alex Ross. In a lot of ways, Alex Ross's version of Superman, I think, has become iconic in a lot of ways. It's Alex Ross's signature version of Superman that very much evokes the Golden Age version of Superman and also brings him into the real world. Even just like his physique, he's a very, very strong version of Superman, but in like a realistic way. He's not sort of like a Image Comics, chiseled version of a superhero. As we'll see throughout the book, he's built in a much more realistic, like strongman kind of way, or old school bodybuilder. But the story opens up with Clark and his dad on the farm back in Smallville, and it just, to me, it just looks like a Norman Rockwell painting. You know, it's very idyllic, it's very classic Americana, and then it's just painted so beautifully. I mean, look at that hand. From a distance, when you zoom out, this almost just looks like photographs. but when you get close, you could see all the beautiful brush strokes and even just the very easy kind of way that the seeds are painted here. There's such a great understanding of lighting, and of course also just like, figure drawing and proportions, to even be able just to draw like a little kid. Sometimes drawing kids and babies especially is really, really difficult in terms of proportions, but he's able to just get it across so easily over here. I also like how this book is set up, obviously like a comic book, but also has kind of like storybook elements too. I don't think there's any like speech bubbles or narration boxes throughout. The design of the placement of the words is very much like a picture book, a storybook. And then we cut to present day, and Clark, Superman, is delivering the tree to, which is like the Metropolis version of Rockefeller Center, I would assume. But again, his Superman is this like incredible idealized version of Superman, like the symbol of a hero. I feel like this whole version of Superman in this book is painted by Alex Ross from the perspective of what a child would assume or think a superhero would be like. And even down to the fact that his costume feels like, it feels real. It almost feels like a Halloween costume in a way, without feeling like hokey or corny. All of Superman's poses throughout this book are very like stoic and seem to come from a place of like inner strength. But again, the proportions and the anatomy and the hands, everything is just expertly painted. The backgrounds too, it's set in Metropolis in a sort of like, I guess, Art Deco, kind of like 1930s, 1940s version of Metropolis. This doesn't exist in any kind of continuity, so it's kind of perfect in terms of taking liberties of some of the best elements of Superman and just like superhero lore in general. Both Superman and Batman, I think, work really, really well in that particular kind of era, that like 1930s, 1940s, kind of like that Norman Rockwell Americana landscape and backdrop. It just works really well with superheroes. Very much how like Bruce Timm set the Batman animated series in that era as well. But this is just a really great spread. All of these pages throughout the book are treated as spreads, double page spreads. Again, very much like a children's book, a picture book. It doesn't work within the traditional comic book format. Also, because this is oversized too, Alex Ross is really taking advantage of the canvas size and the just the template of the book itself. And when you can paint like this and compose images like this, this is really just like Alex Ross at his best, and having the room and the space to just to really show off. I think some of Alex Ross's greatest strengths really lie in his variety of textures that he's able to paint and get across. You could really feel, much like Superman's costume, you could really feel the materials of just even some of these background characters. You could feel what the material of that jacket feels like. This character here, the jacket isn't just like a regular standard kind of jacket. Everybody's jacket is a little bit different in terms of lighting and fabric and size and folds and all that. And I love that attention to detail. And whether you kind of notice it consciously or not, it just adds to the realism and kind of bringing you into that world. And I think that's so much of Alex Ross's appeal, is that it feels real while also maintaining a certain sense of like fantasy and imagination. The real parts of his comics are painted so real and so convincingly that it makes the more, fantastical stuff, like a man flying in the sky, it just makes it more believable, and it sets it in a reality and in a world that we could all kind of believe a little bit more. I like too how even just with the palette here, he's able to distinguish between outside and inside here, between the cool and the much more warm and grayed out palette. Kind of juxtaposing those two next to each other shows a separation of place and also story. But also just look, there are no two faces that are the same. Everybody feels like their own unique individual character. It's pretty impressive. And then here we are, more city scenes. I mean, this really, like, to me, just this like spread right here, I don't know. When I look at something like this, I could kind of like feel the weather. You could feel how damp and cold it is outside. You could also feel that like wet snow. And again, I just love the details of this era that he's setting the comic in. This classic era where everyone's wearing hats and trench coats, and he just does it so well. I know Alex Ross works off of a lot of photo reference, and I think he has a specific guy, or at least he did at one point, a model that would pose for Superman. It's like his particular version of Superman is really just based on this one guy. I think it's like a friend of his. But I might be mistaken in that this particular spread, I think I saw a behind the scenes in like a old Wizard magazine, or maybe I used to have an Alex Ross art book, and I think he posed for this particular Clark Kent spread here. And you can see where this almost looks a lot like Alex Ross in a lot of ways. So this might have been him standing in for Clark Kent. I love the washed out colors. It gives it that little bit of a sense of realism too. It's not like your traditional oversaturated comic book coloring. I think Alex Ross exclusively uses gouache paint. And gouache paint is really great because you could use it it's very versatile. You could use it as like a watercolor, you could use it as an acrylic, and he's able to just push gouache in ways that I kind of didn't even know existed. When I was younger, I thought this was like oil paint. And in a lot of ways, he makes it feel like it's oil. And then sometimes when it's really washed out like this, these flashback scenes here, he's really utilizing the fact that it could be used as almost like a watercolor. I love these flashback scenes throughout the book between Clark and his dad. This panel right here, I mean, this could just be its own illustration, almost like a Saturday Evening Post illustration. And then just look at a spread like that. Like that is so impressive. There's so many different characters here. There's so many different faces. Nobody feels like just a stock drawing. Every face and every posture, every pose, it all just feels so real and natural and believable. The way some people are folding their hands, some are not, backs of heads. And like I said, I think so much of his stuff happens in the research and the photographing of reference. I know he photographs his own reference a lot of times. I think that's a big part of his process. And you could really see where so much of that pays off in a scene like this. I just love a panel just like that. Again, to me, that just feels like you could isolate that and make it its own painting. Similar to that last page too, you could really feel the weather there. You could really feel the way that snow feels, the way the air probably feels. And then throughout, because Superman in this book is just going all over the world, he's being asked to draw and paint so many different types of landscapes and atmospheres and lighting and different types of people and dress and all that kind of stuff. It's really, really impressive. And I would say probably from an artistic perspective, it probably kept it interesting for him too, because for instance, in a page like this, he gets to draw some, Southwest kind of landscape, more desert-like. And so it's a different palette, it's different colors. There's a different set of research that goes into it. In a lot of ways, for an artist, I would imagine that kind of keeps things interesting. What a spread this is. Look at that. I mean, just look at the believability of that lighting, the soft light coming over that mountain over there. Just the angle in which he's choosing to pick. That's really, really great. I guess, is this Brazil or something? This is that famous statue. The way he's kind of mimicking Superman's pose next to this famous statue. I think that's really, really nice. I love how Superman and this thing that he's carrying here is like really the focal point. Everything is so much darker, and it's set against this much more like monochrome palette of everything else. It really helps and make him pop. And Superman has like real skin and real, facial expressions. He has like a certain amount of like body fat on his face. There's little things like that that are believable. It makes him feel like a real person. And these illustrations really exist in two ways. Zoom in, if you're interested in art, making your own art, you can really see the brushstrokes and almost in some way the simplicity of the way like that hair is painted. But when you zoom out, you see how it all kind of comes together and reads so realistically, and how like all the subtleties really kind of like come together and make this thing as effective as it is. There's that face of Superman that I'm talking about that's so like realistic. For all intents and purposes, Superman has a double chin right here, which you very almost never see in comics, or certainly not in the movies or anything like that. And it's not to indicate like a fat Superman or anything like that. It's just to show like this is a real solid person, with a lot of strength, a lot of muscle, but also like there's a believability there too. That if you're looking at someone like that from that angle and they're looking down, there's just a realisticness that there's going to be this like double chin there, and to have him still look heroic and strong and cool, with essentially a double chin. I don't know too many artists who could do that, and that's not generally something that any other comic artist would include, or choose to draw from that angle. I think that's one of the things that really stands out about Alex Ross's versions of these characters. There's these subtlety things that really bring them to life and kind of like make them their own version of those characters. I really like this spread here. If you don't have this book or never seen this book, you might have seen this painting over here. This is kind of like a lot of times when you search Alex Ross or Alex Ross Superman, this one comes up quite a bit. And it's just like a really very real kind of powerful image of Superman Clark Kent. Clark in his home, part, office shirt on and part Superman. There's something very like relatable and real to it. And then just the lighting, and the way it's painted is so effective and well done. Back in Metropolis here, I love the blue cool palette of a cold kind of like Christmassy night. And then just, when you zoom in and you get close to those snowflakes, they feel like they're moving, they feel like they're floating. And then just some of my favorite stuff about Alex Ross's work, and especially in this book, is just the way he's just painting and showing like regular people in the background. It's all the background element stuff. This is really so much of the stuff that I tuned into as a kid when I had this book. Just the way he would paint an office, and these city scenes, and all these background characters, the newsstand. This is some of his best stuff right here. Here's another very iconic image of Superman from Alex Ross. This comes from this book. You might have also have seen this shot of Superman looking down at all the people of the world. In a lot of ways, this kind of reminds me of like a specific Norman Rockwell painting from, I think, like later in his career. And maybe this is something that Alex Ross was referencing directly, but that's just really nicely done. I love how like it just fades into black over there. Like he's radiating and coming out of just like this purely black background, and you can see how he's kind of doing this like little bit of a glow around the planet and around Superman himself. And the lighting on there is so nice, but there's no halo. It's just the way he lights Superman, and just the way he adds that little bit of a glow around everything. It just makes him pop. I love the confidence of just going straight into black. And then here we are, the last page, and it's kind of bookends here, the way Clark's hand ends it, where Clark's dad's hand was that first shot in the beginning, if I could find it. Like, this is the first page, and then this is the last page. Really nice storytelling bookends over there, and then just another opportunity to look at a really beautifully painted hand by Alex Ross. And I love that real warm, kind of washed out palette that he's using once again on this last page. What a great book. So many amazing paintings throughout this whole book. It's really, it's a great story too, but in a lot of ways, it's like an Alex Ross art book in so many ways. I actually had to hunt down this version of the book on eBay. I had a copy of this, as I mentioned earlier in the video, but like a lot of the stuff that I mentioned on this channel, it just sort of got lost in the shuffle, unfortunately. So it's very like nostalgic for me to be reunited with this book again and just kind of flip through it and see it in person. It made me wonder though, as I was looking for this book once again, if they had put out a collection of all of these yearly books that Paul Dini and Alex Ross put out for that stretch of 4 or 5 years. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Shazam. There might have been one other. And I was looking for it and I couldn't find it. I thought that that would be a really great book to collect all of these solo stories that they put together that were very much out of continuity and just like special kind of like art book approaches to these characters. If you know if that book exists, let me know in the comments below. If it doesn't exist though, maybe we can campaign DC to put something like that together. That would be really beautiful. But what did you think? If you're not familiar with this book, did you like what you see? I'd say it's probably hard not to. There's some really wonderful painting in here. And it's just a really nice standalone story, again, especially for this time of the year. I mentioned in a recent video that I was going to try to get another Christmas-themed video out where we look at a Christmassy kind of appropriate book, and I was able to do it, so I'm happy about that. Let me know in the comments below if you are a Alex Ross fan and what your favorite book of his is. He has a really great art book out there, something that I might want to check out for the channel. I think it's called Rough Justice. It would be really great on this channel to look at more of his process stuff and behind the scenes stuff. So let me know in the comments below if that's something you would be interested in seeing. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it put you in a nice Christmassy mood. And I also hope that it inspired you. It's really hard to look at Alex Ross's work and not get inspired and want to make art yourself. It's pretty incredible what he's able to do with gouache. If you're not familiar, Alex Ross has a YouTube channel. I'm sure you are if you're an Alex Ross fan, but he's got some really great videos on there and he really goes into his process, and there's just great footage of him actually painting and bringing this stuff to life, and it blows my mind every time I watch him work on one of those videos. I'll try to link the channel down below in the description, but again, I'm sure most of you are very familiar with that channel. But just some supplemental stuff to check out if you're now suddenly in an Alex Ross kind of mood. So anyway, thanks again so much for watching. If you liked the video, please do hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed to the video, please do consider subscribing. It really helps the channel. And it also helps keep you up to date with all of my new videos. I put out a lot of very regular videos and I got a lot more really cool ones coming up. So in order to make sure you don't miss any of those, please do remember to subscribe to the channel. I also have a Patreon. I'll link it in the description below. You get early access to these videos as well as a lot of behind the scenes stuff. I share a bunch of stuff that I don't share anywhere else, including some of my own comic book work and a lot of behind the scenes process stuff as well. We're having fun over there and I hope to see you over there sometime soon. Again, I'll leave a link for that in the description below if you want to sign up. But that's all I got for this one. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.